And we'll wrap up this morning with a panel led by Deep Packnicker, full of present and past district leaders who are going to tell you about their experience in leadership. But first, to lead us through today's program, I'm very pleased to introduce our Toastmaster for the day, Todd Allen Cuddebeck, Distinguished Toastmaster and past Distinguished District Director 2016 and 2017. Presently, Todd is also the District 2 Toastmasters Rotary Alliance Coordinator. Todd's been a member of Toastmasters for 13 years and has been involved in District 2 leadership for 11 of those 13 years. Please join me in giving Todd a warm welcome. Todd.
Thank you, Megan. Hey, it's another groovy day. And why is that? It's the Leaders Breakfast Day. Yay, and you're all here. Yeah, that's a great thing. You know, back in the day, it was called the President's Breakfast. And all the presidents from the clubs were invited, and the club would pay their entry fee, and we would have breakfast and talk about leadership. And then one day we thought, you know, this is so cool. We have such great presenters. We have international directors coming and speaking to us, past world championship speakers. Why not open it up to everyone? Let's call it the Leaders Breakfast. And that's what we did. And then it was a couple years later. It's so funny because I've heard many jokes around this morning about bacon. And then one year we budget cutted the bacon. Oh my goodness. It's like we cut our own feet off. It was just this big uproar throughout the district. And oh my gosh, the district leaders cut the bacon out of the Leaders Breakfast. So it's really interesting before we got started this morning to hear all that chatter about bacon. Everybody so hopefully in this virtual world, you got to have your own bacon this morning for the Leaders Breakfast. It's pretty cool. It's so great to see so many people. I haven't seen many of you for a very, very long time. And in today's world with Zoom and this magic ICU2 TV set, I can see you, and it's great to see a lot of you. And they're my home club members here, and Kyle. I haven't seen Kyle in forever. Hi, Kyle. Great to see you, my friend. Bacon. I still can't believe you guys are talking about bacon. You know, in the world of COVID, we've come across many challenges, and that's what being a leader is pretty much all about. We're faced with challenges, and then we come up and think out how we can overcome them. In today's world with COVID, I know many of you are struggling. I know my home club, Snohomish County Toastmasters, membership is a big deal, but we keep plugging it away. And the officers team, you know, that's why there's 7 of us. We come together and we think out and we plan and we figure out, hey, let's have an open house. You know, in all of my time in district leadership, some of the clubs that I see get into the most trouble don't have some kind of membership building campaign or an event like an open house, where you make it a big deal and put it out there and invite people and get your club members to invite people. That's the way that you continually build a club. So if you come away with nothing else today, go back to your club and have an open house. We're a month into 2022. It's almost like a little brand new baby year. And that means we've only got about 5 months left in the Toastmaster year. And with 5 months left, you know, many of you remember when I was the district director, I gave you 3 keys to success. It's in the manual, it's on the website, and the biggest one that I want to reflect on today is what's the plan? And we have 5 months left in the Toastmaster year. There is no reason why your club can't become distinguished. Start now. Membership building, get those education goals done, find out who's gonna finish those particular levels, figure it out, make a plan, because I'm telling you right now, there is no reason why you can't become distinguished. And if you really want to go for the golden ring, go for the President's Distinguished. But what's the plan? You know, you've served your club, you've served the district for 7 months now. What are you going to do next? What's your plan? What's your personal plan? Many of you are vice presidents of education. Are you going to be the president next year? Start thinking about it. Presidents, who's going to replace you? Start grooming that person. There are many opportunities in the district as well. You know, in order to become a distinguished Toastmaster, you have to serve the district for 1 Toastmaster year. Do you want to be an area director? Do you want to be a division director? You know, you heard Megan talk about the challenges that she faced in saying yes. It was amazing to me to be the district director of District 2. I was just a mechanic from Everett. And here I became the bus driver for the entire district with 4,000 passengers on my bus. And where else would I get that kind of experience? That experience is available to you. And there's nothing that gives better OJT than jumping in with both feet. You don't have to be an expert. You know, I really like to say in Toastmasters, we don't call on the qualified. We qualify the called. So if you have an idea, if you think that you can't do it, I'm telling you right now, you can do it. I'm standing right behind you, so don't stop. I don't want to step on you. There are many, many really cool positions coming up as well. Tina is going to be going up to become the district director if we all elect her, and she's going to be looking for a team. It's my understanding this year the district leadership committee is working with the district to find area directors too. So if you want to be an area director, the most important job in the entire Toastmasters organization is the area director. You are the front line between the club and the district. You are the doctor. You're the doctor getting the heartbeat and the blood pressure of those clubs and letting the district know what they need to do, what changes they need to make. So think about that. Number 3, success tip. What's the plan? What's the plan for your club becoming distinguished? But more importantly, what is the plan for you and your leadership growth? We have an amazing lineup today, so we're just going to jump right in with our first presenter, and we are blessed to have Roddy Spear with us today. And Roddy Spear is a mother, wife, and an engineer. In August of 2021, she was elected second vice president of Toastmasters International. I hope she talks about that a little bit because I think that is a very, very cool deal. She's a charter member of AT&T Middletown Toastmasters and has served in many district leadership positions. As long as she doesn't try and recruit me, it will be okay. As Lieutenant Governor of Marketing, she helped charter 27 clubs and was awarded the Excellence in Marketing Award. She's a distinguished past district governor of District 46, which includes present-day District 83 and District 119 or 119. It was one of the largest districts in the world with over 250 clubs and over 4,500 members. Toastmasters International President Jana Barnhill awarded her a presidential citation in August of 2009. That's a big deal. She was honored to serve on the very first International Leadership Committee. Additionally, she spoke on a leadership panel titled Achieving Success in the Distinguished District during the 2009 Toastmasters International Convention. She was appointed as our Region 9 advisor in 2015 and 2016. That's why she looks so familiar. And served as our international director from 2017 to 2019. Outside of Toastmasters, Roddy has worked in the telecommunications industry for over 30 years. She is an electrical engineer working for AT&T in Middletown, New Jersey. She has 2 daughters, lives with her husband in Castaway, New Jersey. Please help me give a big warm welcome for second Vice President of Toastmasters International, Roddy Spear.
Thank you, Todd. Fellow Toastmasters, let me start by asking you, what would you do if you were in my shoes? I was 15 years old and I was in Bangalore, India, and a brand new pool was just built. It was a true Olympic size pool, 8 lanes, 50 meters long with a 10-meter board. We were all very excited. I joined and I learned to swim. I used to go swimming every morning from 6 to 8 before school, and then from 4:30 to 5:30 in the ladies' match. A few months later, they announced that a swimming competition was coming up, and I signed up for the 100 meters freestyle and 100 meters backstroke. I was practicing, and then as the day of the competition got closer, I started getting nervous, I was getting anxious, I started skipping practice. Finally, on the day of the contest, my mother asked me excitedly, "All set, you're going to the contest, right?" And I'm like, yes. So I go to the swimming pool and all the girls were there. And I thought this was very logical. I asked each of them, "What's your timing? What's your timing?" And then I realized they were all faster than me. What's the point? So my friend was with me, Maya. I said, "Hey, Maya, let's just go to the bakery." And being the city, you can walk to the bakery. I like apple cake. She likes peanut brittle. We bought what we wanted, munched on it, strolled home. My mother opened the door, all excited. "How did you do?" I said, "Oh, no point. They're all faster than me. I didn't take part." "You didn't take part? You didn't even try? You just gave up?" "Oh," she just went on, "this is not sportsmanship. This is not what I taught you. I cannot believe you practiced all these days and you just walked away."
Be quiet. Focus on your...
So I didn't want to disappoint her. So I said, okay, stop. So I ran back to the swimming pool. They were announcing last call for 400 meters freestyle final. I had never swum 400 meters in my life. I said, "I'll do it." And this is India in the late 70s. There was no time to go change. I had my swimsuit underneath, just tore off my clothes, got on the stand. "On your marks, get set, go." And I'm swimming as fast as I could with my mother's words ringing in my ears. And I could taste the peanut brittle and the apple cake in my throat. But I somehow completed 400 meters and I came third. So I was so excited after that. I have to tell you, swimming is a lot like Toastmasters. Initially it's scary getting in the water, learning to breathe, learning to float. Same thing like when you go to the first Toastmasters meeting, it's kind of scary. And then you don't want to make eye contact with the table topics master. By chance they call you, but over time you get better and then you start getting good at it. But the difference is, swimming is essential and crucial, you could say, but you don't use it in everyday life. Whereas Toastmasters, we use in everyday life. So how did I start my journey in Toastmasters? Let me ask you this. Have you ever felt out of place, picked on, wished you had the confidence to speak up? Well, that was me. I grew up in Africa, in Lagos, Nigeria. I went there when I was 3 years old. I had a wonderful childhood, don't get me wrong, but as this very shy, quiet child, and the teacher always wanted the kids to stand up. So in first grade, I had this tall, big man, like a heavyset Denzel Washington, and he would want us to stand up and answer the question. And when it was my turn, he would say, "Speak up." And I would just tremble and whisper even more. When I was about 12 years old, my family moved back to India. And because I'd grown up in Africa, I had the Nigerian accent. My clothes were different. I stood out. So my parents put me in Catholic school. I wore the uniform. I kind of blended in, but every time I spoke, they would laugh at my accent. Well, I survived school there, got my engineering degree and came to the US for my master's in electrical engineering. And to my surprise, I was the only girl in all of my classes. And the minute the professor realized that, it would be, "Oh, you there, can you come up and answer this question? Can you write on the board?" I was picked on by every teacher, but I found my home and my voice in Toastmasters. I wish I'd found it sooner. I love to belong to an organization that cuts across national boundaries and welcomes people from different cultures and occupations. Toastmasters brings us all closer together with our common goal of personal growth. I think Dr. Smedley was brilliant when he came up with the concept of Toastmasters, because every Toastmaster member has a home. Their home is their club. And if that club provides a supportive and nurturing environment, that member does well. So we all heard of the district mission when we go to the district conference, but we all have a club mission. And the club mission is that we provide a supportive and nurturing environment for our members so that they can improve their communication and leadership skills. And the thing is this, we are all there to support each other. Think about it. Today, all of you are on my side. You want me to do well. You don't want me to waste your time this Saturday morning. And I don't want to. I hope I'll give you something to think about. So we are all on the same side. And my favorite quote is by our founder, Dr. Smedley, who said, ours is the only organization dedicated to the individual. And, we work together to bring out the best in each of us, and then we apply these skills to help others. How great is that? We don't care about the stock price, the stock market. We are there to help each other. We have this fantastic support system already built in to help each other. Now, you might think the org chart is like this, with the district director, Heather in the center, and she has Tina as a right hand and Linda as the other right hand, and she has Megan and Todd, the finance manager, the public relations manager, area directors, division directors. But no, the true org chart in Toastmasters is this. The member is at the top, and everything we do is to support the members. We have the clubs, which provide that supportive and nurturing environment so that our members do well. We have areas to help the clubs, divisions to help the areas, districts to help the divisions, and so on. And then you have the board of directors right there, close to the bottom. So this whole environment is there to help you. So in your club, if we provide a supportive and nurturing environment, we'll do well. Now, let's look at all the things we learn when we become a member of a club. Now, we start off with communication skills, right? We all learn to speak in front of people, but it's not just that. We also learn time management. We have to get our message across in the time allocated. We learn, we have better run meetings because we have an agenda. I can tell you at AT&T, I always wish they could all join Toastmasters. I have managers rambling on, no one keeps time. We learn to keep time. We have a nice agenda. We get to the point, we give our message across. And enhanced customer communications. I would say when I meet with our customers at work, sometimes they don't know how to ask the question, but because I've practiced table topics, I gather all the information in my head, I give a coherent answer, and they're like, oh yeah, that's what I was asking. So it really helps. And then we have presentation skills, right? We have props, we have vocal variety, body language. We learn all those things to keep our audience's attention. And most importantly, feedback, constructive feedback. We give feedback to our children, to our spouse. We give feedback at work to our employees. If we are, if you're running your own business, to your employees. So all the skills that we learn in Toastmasters, we use in everyday life. And what does that all result in? You would all agree with me is self-confidence, right? Greater self-confidence. A person joins, within 6 months, you see the difference in them. You see how well they are doing. Let me tell you my story. I had a dentist appointment and I was running late. So you know how you brush and you floss, and while I was flossing, I broke a filling. So I'm like, oh, well, this happens. I went to the appointment. The dentist treated me, cleaned all my teeth and took x-rays. And he says, oh, everything is fine. But that filling you broke, come back in 2 weeks, we'll fill it. And by the way, I'm retiring, but we have a new doctor, Dr. Goldstein. She'll take care of you. You're all set. So I make the appointment, go back in 2 weeks. I'm sitting there in the chair waiting for this nice Jewish doctor, Dr. Goldstein, to come. And then this small, short Indian woman walks in, and I'm like, you're Dr. Goldstein? I guess the same way people look at me and say, you're Miss Spear? And I'm like, yes. So Dr. Goldstein treats my filling. And then she says, oh, looking at your x-rays, I see a shadow here and something on the lingual side, and we have to fix this. And all the while I'm thinking, in my mind, oh, this lady wants to put a whole new wing on this dental office, because the previous guy was retiring because he was old, not because he was blind. He hadn't mentioned any of this, and she wants to do all this work. But hey, Toastmasters has given me self-confidence. So I said, Dr. Goldstein, I'd like copies of all my x-rays. I'll get a second opinion. And she says, certainly. And I left. And my friend from the swimming pool, she's now a dentist here in New Jersey. So I sent her all the x-rays. I called her up. I said, Maya, can you believe this? This new doctor wants to do all this work. Can you please check? She's like, don't worry. I will talk to my colleagues. I'll get back to you. She called me a week later, and then she says, Radhi, she's right. You need all that work. I'm like, what? How can I go back now? So she's like, well, if you're willing to drive up, I'll help you out. Come, to my office. So I used to drive up. She treated me. And then she went on vacation, and I got a toothache. But hey, Toastmasters has given me self-confidence. I call back Dr. Goldstein. I'm like, hey, I have a toothache. Can I see you? Oh, sure, come back. And so I went back, and you might all be thinking, why is she telling us this embarrassing story, right? But the thing is this, because I had the self-confidence, I didn't just continue thinking all the while, oh, this doctor is ripping me off doing all this work. I had a second opinion. I made sure that everything she was doing was right. And then I was able to go back to her, all things that, skills that you need in real life. So going back to her and getting my work done was great. And I'm grateful to Toastmasters. So that's all about communication skills and getting self-confidence. But how about being a leader? How many here would call themselves a leader? Well, I would say all of us are leaders. When we persuade our kids to do their homework, when we persuade our coworkers to go to a certain restaurant to have lunch, when we are so many things in life, we are always trying to influence and persuade people. Now, what I find interesting is that we are willing to just live for 365 days and celebrate our birthdays, but we don't even acknowledge that we are leaders. I always get the impression that, oh, you have to be like Mahatma Gandhi, who got freedom for a country and he's a leader. But do you know that Mahatma Gandhi was a regular Joe or a regular Mohan? His name is Mohandas Gandhi. He went to England to study law. He came back to India. He had to study Indian law because it's slightly different. And then in his very first case in Bombay, when he stood up to speak, he just froze. He couldn't speak. He struggled. He finally went back to his seat, told his client, I'm sorry, I can't do this, gave the money back. And that was the first and last time he was in a courtroom in Bombay, in India. But Gandhi did not have Toastmasters. We have Toastmasters. We are lucky. But Gandhi persisted, of course, and got out of his comfort zone and was successful. Now, I like the definition of leadership by Peter Northouse, who wrote in this textbook, Leadership Theory and Practice, that leadership is a process whereby an individual influences a group of individuals to achieve a common goal. I like that definition because that ties in with Toastmasters. It's not that you have to be born with the special inborn traits. We can all learn to become better leaders. And being a leader involves influence. We are communicating with our followers, and it's a multi-directional communication. You never hear of, oh, we have this great political manager or this great political leader, military leader. Manager. We all want leaders. The world is looking for leaders. And a leader is a person who says there is a better way to do something and persuades you to find that way. And we all need leadership. And right here in Toastmasters, when you become a club officer, there's so much that you learn as a club officer, starting with strategic planning. I know that sounds small. You want your club to do well, to be distinguished, but it is. You're still planning how your club is going to succeed. Improved customer service. Our members are our customers. We want them to do well. Sometimes we do moments of truth to figure out what it is that they want us to change, what we could do better. We learn delegation, like Megan running this event. She has so many people involved. Hey, Kevin, can you be the Zoom master? Todd, you're the Toastmaster. She has all these people. She's delegating, she's getting it done. We learn by doing. It's all about experiential learning. We have marketing and public relations. How are people going to hear about this? How do they know? We have to market. And then there's budgeting. It's not just budgeting money. We budget time, budget people, who's going to do what, when. And then we have to write to each other to communicate all that is going on. And now with COVID, the silver lining is we are now learning to meet online, have presentations online, webinars online. So tomorrow is going to be very different than yesterday, but Toastmasters is keeping with the times. We are learning new skills, all the skills that we need to learn, because it may be hybrid meetings tomorrow, it may be online, it may be in person. It all depends upon the situation. So my fellow Toastmasters, I would like to know how many here have been club officers, area directors, division directors, district leaders, region advisors, international directors. There are so many opportunities in Toastmasters. We not only train you and give you all the skills, but we give you the opportunity to practice all these skills. Now, I started this speech by saying, what would you do if you're in my shoes? But I would like to end by asking you, what will you do now? Because Toastmasters has given you all these skills. And you have, by making sure that your club is healthy and fine, you are learning these skills that you can use in your everyday life. People like Mahatma Gandhi did not have Toastmasters. He got out of his comfort zone and he failed, but he persevered. But look at us. We are all afraid sometimes that we are not fast enough, good enough, skilled enough. When I went to the swimming pool, I thought, oh, it's no point. I'm not fast enough to take part. But we are all likely to look back and regret that we never even tried. It's okay to try and fail, but not look back and think, oh my God, I wish I had tried. So in Toastmasters, we give you the opportunity to try out all these skills. It's a very safe place in your club. The club helps you, you help them. It's a win-win situation. And all the skills you learn in the club, you can use in everyday life. So as Todd was just saying, what is your plan? Did you want to be on that school board? Did you want that promotion? Did you want to run some event? Whatever it is, will you take that next step? Because Toastmasters is here. They have done all that there is for you. They are supporting you. They're teaching you the skills. Take that next step. Will you take that next step? All right. Back to you, Toastmaster.
Yay. Thank you, Roddy. Being in Toastmasters, as long as I've been in Toastmasters and gained all that confidence, but putting myself in your shoes at the dentist, I'm shaking. That's like sent chills up my spine thinking about putting myself in your shoes. Thanks again, Roddy. That was really amazing. Moving on. I haven't seen this guy in so long. I think the last time I saw him was at the district conference sometime back in 2016 or 2017. I met him. We competed against each other. Oh gosh, it was probably 8 or 9 years ago at the Division F contest. An amazing individual, somebody I consider my friend. And here we go. Our presenter today holds degrees in molecular biology and anthropology from the University of California, Irvine. He has had a long career in information technology with a passion for languages, music, of course, public speaking, and history. Today, he will bring history to life, recounting several not so known facts about the brave people who set out to build a new republic. Learn how they beat the odds to break free from the old world tyranny and to create a new world order based on freedom. Learn many leadership traits you can still apply today in your personal and in unique leadership journey. Please join me in giving a warm welcome to our presenter, distinguished Toastmaster, Lee Amatangelo. Hey, Lee, long time no see, my friend. You're muted.
Yes, I was asking to be unmuted. Thank you very much, Todd, past district governor, Roddy Spear, second vice president, all distinguished Toastmasters in the audience, Lance Miller, our special guest, world championship speaker, fellow Toastmasters, and most welcome guests. We don't have to look much further than our own backyard to find leadership. We don't have to look much further than our own extraordinary country to find leadership. Today, I want to take us on a really quick whirlwind tour of how we got to the beginnings of this country, and then the amazing stories of those founding fathers and what they did and what lessons of leadership we can learn from them. Our country was founded in the Age of Enlightenment, and 55 demigods went about the business of trying to create this new republic. But let's go back to the even earlier humble beginnings. In 1620, there was a group of people in Great Britain who were being persecuted by England because they had these puritanical belief systems. And in England at that time, you had to subscribe to the Church of England. What is more of a fundamental right for a human to decide the belief system that they want to subscribe to? So in the heat of the night, clandestine operation, they jumped on board a ship and they set sail to the New World. It was 10 grueling months out on the Atlantic Ocean, and they arrived off the coast of Cape Cod in present-day Massachusetts. They ended up coming to this new land in a very harsh winter. It was so harsh the ground was frozen they could not even plant any crops. On that ship, as we know, was called the Mayflower. There were 102 passengers and 30 crew members. By the end of that harsh winter, only 53 of those passengers had survived. And it was only thanks to some of the indigenous people that helped them, show them how to survive the winter and then to grow crops in the next spring. 156 years went by, and in that time, you think these monarchs of Great Britain would take a hint. Do you have those friends that don't take a hint? Well, they set sail to the New World too, and they came here and they said, since you guys were subjects of Great Britain, these colonies are now the subject of Great Britain. And they put their soldiers there. Some of them were quartered in people's houses without any say. Those people had to cook and clean after these people, had to give them room and board. And in return, Great Britain said, well, we're going to protect you from the indigenous people. Well, we didn't ask for you to protect us. As people came to the New World, they settled into 13 colonies, and they would settle in a colony that was like-minded. You had the Presbyterians settling in North and South Carolina. You had the Unitarians settling in Massachusetts. You had the Episcopalians settling in Virginia, and you had the Quakers settling in Pennsylvania as an example of how people settled in these colonies. Well, the American Revolution actually started in 1765, well before the Revolutionary War, and it ended in 1791. And these revolutionaries were meeting in taverns. They were strategizing what they were going to do. And all of a sudden, Great Britain started to impose really heavy taxes on these colonists. As you recall, the colonists never even wanted them here to begin with. And as a revolt in Boston, they threw all the tea into the harbor. They said, we are not going to take your tea. We're going to send your ship back. But the governor of Massachusetts said, no, we're not going to send the ship back. So as a revolt, they put this into the harbor. And that was the spark that started in 1773 as the precept to the war that was going to take place. Well, how did we get to this Age of Enlightenment? Well, let's look at history really quickly. There's the fall of the Roman Empire. Next came what we called the Middle Ages, also called the medieval times. Historians called it the Dark Ages. This lasted 900 to 1,000 years. And in that time in Western civilization, there weren't any great advancements of any kind. There weren't any new political systems formed. There weren't any advancements in poetry or literature. There weren't any advancements in science or medicine. It was really a dark area. It was the fiefdoms. You had the lords and the serfs. There was a lot of jockeying for position by the lords. 1,000 years of blood and mud. It was a very hideous time to have lived. And then on the heels of that, we had the Renaissance, this burgeoning, this regrowth, this rebirth of ideas. We had new forms of poetry and literature and dance. We had new advancements in science and medicine, and art took off, as we know. Well, right on the heels of the Renaissance, this rebirth of ideas, came the Age of Enlightenment. And the Age of Enlightenment continued this rebirth of ideas, but all of a sudden humans had a new formed consciousness. They realized how precious human lives were and how rights for these humans should be so important. It was the first time in the history of the human experience that the oppressed rose up against the oppressor. And it happened here on the soil of this new world. These revolutionaries saying we're not going to take it anymore. And they had formed what was called the Continental Congress, even before the country had even been formed. And the Congress came together and said, okay, we need to write a letter to King George III and let him know we don't want to be a part of his organization anymore. And so several of these founding fathers approached Thomas Jefferson and said, hey, Thomas, we want you to write this letter. And Thomas said, oh, no. The person you want is James Madison. He's much more learned than I. He's much more knowledgeable about political systems. He is a deeper thinker than I. And these founding fathers looked at each other kind of confused and said, we already asked him. He said, you were the guy. If ever there was a person in history poised to make a difference, it was Thomas Jefferson. Let me give you a sense of this man. By the time he was 5, he read the full corpus of his father's library. Now, some may see that was a little exaggerated, but not by much. When you read Thomas Jefferson memoirs from age 6 to 26, he literally spent 10 to 12 hours every day reading. He amassed his own library. He was a deep thinker. He knew 5 languages. He could speak Latin and Greek. He could speak Italian and French, and of course, English. He read the ancient Greek philosophers and playwrights in their original text. And here he is, this man who read all the classics, all the philosophers, and he's asked to write this letter. And so he writes this letter in one day, pretty much in one sitting, and then he tinkered with it a little bit, and then he presents it back to this Continental Congress. And they pretty much took that letter as is, with one major change. And you probably figured it out. This letter was called the Declaration of Independence. The one piece they took out of this Declaration of Independence was a whole paragraph on abolishing slavery. Think about that for a moment. 87 years before the President Abraham Lincoln in 1863 gives us the Emancipation Proclamation. This is how forward-thinking Thomas Jefferson was. Almost 90 years ahead of his time, or another way to put it, Thomas Jefferson was on point. The rest of the world was 90 years late. He's the guy that writes this letter. He starts out talking about the tyranny and how we are proclaiming our own independence from you, King George III. And of course, getting this letter, like any arrogant monarch, He didn't take it very kindly or lightly, and he sends his army and his navy, and here they come after. And then the war starts, July 4th, 1776, when this letter is sent over there. These demigods are all about giving us our freedoms. And so the war ensues. And Great Britain is a great world power. Now I want you to think about who was here in the New World at the time, those 13 colonies. It was an agrarian society. They are farmers and frontiersmen. And it was basically BYOW, bring your own weapon. You have a musket, bring it. You have a shovel, bring that. You have a rake or a hoe, bring that. But this was not an organized army. They had no army here. They had no navy. They didn't have the Marines. They didn't have the Coast Guard. They obviously didn't have the Air Force. And yet Great Britain has a great army and a great navy. And 7-year battle takes place, and the New World people beat this great world power. Why? Because they were great leaders and they believed in what they wanted to do, and that was to give freedoms to their citizens. And they won the war. And this is the first time that a colonized republic kicked out a monarchy. It was the first time that a republic formed, governed by its own people. And today we have the longest standing constitution on this planet of any republic or nation. So these guys got together and then they form the Constitution. Well, at the time, Thomas Jefferson was in France. Obviously, he would have been the choice to write this Constitution, but it fell to James Madison. And again, a man poised to make a big difference in the world, if ever, was James Madison. Let's go back to the Declaration of Independence. Thomas writes this on 2/3 of a page. He leaves the bottom part of that page for these 55 demigods to sign it. And one of those people absolutely loathed King George III. And he wanted to sign it first, and he signs it right in the center of that white space. And very legible penmanship, a lot of swirls, and just flamboyant signature. He wanted King George to see that. And of course, that name is John Hancock. His signature was so prevalent that today we use it as a metaphor. Hey, put your John Hancock on that contract. It means sign your name. Basically, he wanted King George to see his signature. He's basically giving a proverbial middle gesture to King George III. He wanted him to see this. Now think about this. These 55 people signing this document. Had Great Britain won this war, if any of those people were still alive, that was an act of treason. They would have easily been put before a firing squad, first order of business by King George III if they won that war. So their lives were on the line. These were leaders putting their lives on the line to create this new republic to give us these freedoms. So then Madison writes that Constitution. At the end, Thomas Jefferson comes back from France, and for one of the very rare times in public, he shows this outward anger. He says, how can we write a constitution for this new republic but not give the citizens a Bill of Rights? And he puts forth this idea, and so James Madison, with the help of Thomas Jefferson, writes those first 10 amendments to the Constitution, which becomes the Bill of Rights. And let's look at that First Amendment. It has 5 pieces to it. And the very first one says, the United States, this new republic, will not establish a national religion. Because by doing so, it pits that religion against all other religions. And the main reason we came to this country was for religious freedom. The second part of the First Amendment is you have freedom of speech. The third part is you have freedom of press. You can write whatever you want. The fourth part is you have the power and the right to peaceably assemble. And the fifth part that most people don't ever talk about is you have the right to petition your government. If you see a law or a rule you don't like, you can petition your government without them coming after you and trying to kill you. Now think about that in the world today. What countries that you could not speak up? China, Russia, Cuba, Iran, Iraq, Saudi Arabia. You think you can speak up in those countries against the crown or the leaders of those countries without retribution? You'd be lucky to make it to the end of the week, and you might even be lucky to make it to the end of the day. because you are a dissident. And in these countries, they don't want to mess around. They're just going to erase it. So these 5 rights that we are given in that First Amendment are so powerful, thanks to those leaders that gave us these rights. Let's go back to the Declaration of Independence for a second. You have this guy, this idealist, this man who thinks in big sweeping terms, a man who's already thinking about abolishing slavery. And those people in the Congress said, no. Slavery is so ingrained in the old world, the Atlantic trade route, the New World. I mean, it's that triangle of molasses for rum for slaves. We can't have that. But he was thinking about this so many years ahead of time. And he spoke in these lofty ideals. If John Adams had written the Declaration of Independence, for example, here's a man who was stuck in medieval thinking. He would have written in medieval language and arguments against his enemies. This thing would have been a 75-page pamphlet. That wouldn't have had the same impact. Let's say James Madison had written the Declaration of Independence. He's very precise in his language. It would have been several pages. And then if George Washington, the leader of the revolution, a very tall man for his era, a very powerful man, but a very soft-spoken man, a man of few words, he probably would have said, King George III, we no longer want to be part of your realm. We quit. But the idealist writes it. And in that declaration that Thomas writes are these 35 most revolutionary words the world had ever seen. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. The world had never seen words like that before. Revolutionary. Of course, it sparked a revolutionary war. Had James Madison written this, those words would have came out something like this. We are reasonably sure that under very controlled situation, that white Anglo-Saxon men who are landowners and reach a certain station in society, in some certain situations, they would be considered equal, right? It doesn't have the same punch, the same drive. So these men gave their lives and they led with this idea of the Age of Enlightenment, the age that now we can be free. And while Thomas Jefferson was in France during those years that the Constitution was written, it was the eve of their revolution. He was intoxicated by what he saw. So we see this movement happening in the old world and now in the new world as well, that people now want to embrace this Age of Enlightenment. Well, let's look at Ben Franklin, a man who was a full generation older than most of the other founding fathers. They looked up to him. He was already a world figure. He would go to the New World. He would go to France and he would wear these fur coats and these coonskin hats. And they thought, oh, look at this rugged New World guy here. And they all looked up to him. They all wanted to be like him. He was all the rage of the Parisian circuit, salon circuit. And they wanted to emulate him. They wanted to speak like him. They wanted to be like him. So back in America, he was this statesman. He was a social butterfly that wrote to all the crowned heads of Europe. He was an inventor. He was a self-made man. He formed a printing business that was very lucrative for him. And one day he decided to do this experiment. And he went outside in a thunderstorm, as we know, and he flew his kite. And the whole purpose of flying that kite is because he had this thought that electricity would much rather travel through metal than through the air or through a tree or through a building or a structure. So he's flying this kite, and the whole point of the kite was to take this piece of metal up into the sky. So the key was up there by the kite. And when you look at the political cartoons of Ben Franklin flying that kite, usually you see the key down by where his hand was. But that's not the case. It's up there in the sky. And sure enough, he saw lightning strike and it hit the key rather than hitting other structures or other trees, things like that. Does anybody know what invention came because of that experiment? You can put it in the chat if you like. Ben Franklin invents the lightning rod. And today the lightning rod has saved more lives and more structures than any other invention to date. And he never patented this invention. And a reporter asked him one day, and he said, "Why didn't you ever patent the lightning rod?" And Ben Franklin gave a response that really encapsulates the sentiment of the Age of Enlightenment. The Age of Enlightenment was all about, if you came up with something new, it now belonged to society. You came up with a new way of doing poetry, it's now owned by society. You came up with a new medical technique, it's now owned by society. New inventions, new scientific endeavors, it's now owned by society. So his response to this reporter was, "If you came to me with your unlit candle, I would gladly let you dip it into my lit candle, thereby illuminating you without darkening me." Isn't that so true? When we teach other people something, we don't lose the knowledge. It doesn't get transferred to them. We give them the knowledge we have, but we also retain the knowledge. And that was the Age of Enlightenment. And the Age of Enlightenment had a beginning, but it never has an end. Because once we become enlightened, once we learn knowledge, we will do this forever. So it's like a ray of light. And we can thank these founding fathers for doing this. We owe a debt of gratitude to these founding fathers. When Thomas Jefferson became president, he went off and met with Napoleon Bonaparte, and he purchased the Louisiana Territory for $15 million. That turned out to be $18 per square mile. And with a single stroke of his pen, he doubled the size of this new republic. He then sent Meriwether Lewis and William Clark off to go into this new territory and then go beyond to the Oregon country and claim that for the United States, which they did. And so now we have this new republic that fulfills a vision that Thomas Jefferson had, a republic that would span an entire continent whereby you could have ports on 2 different seaboards. This is a great vision by a man. Look at some of our previous presidents, maybe someone in the 90s. Him and his wife did some land deals that became a scandal. They did that for personal gain. Thomas Jefferson gets land for the new republic. Think about these earlier presidents. They all had their own business. They went in and took leadership positions, just like people in Toastmasters do, for no pay. They do it for giving back to that society, just like we do in Toastmasters. George Washington didn't take money, he had his own plantation. Thomas Jefferson had his own plantation. Ben Franklin, who was never a president, but he was very much a public official in the new republic, the first postmaster general. They had their own business that they was their source of income. They did this out of the true essence of being a leader, and we can thank them for that. George Washington, when he became president, after 2 terms, he called it quits. He was the general that won the Revolutionary War. He would have been made president for the rest of his life if he let them. They would have kept voting him in to be president. But why did he do that? Why after 2 terms did he do it? There was nothing set in the Constitution that said you can only serve 2 terms. But he set a precedent because he didn't want this to be like the old world monarchies where kings and queens ruled until they died. And then their heirs would take over, and the heir may not have any leadership skills at all. He didn't want that. Anybody in America could rise to the aristocracy and be a leader, just like Ben Franklin. Ben Franklin came from very poor, humble beginnings. So he set that in precedence. His vice president, John Adams, becomes the 2nd president, and after the end of his term, there's an election. And now Thomas Jefferson wins. The way it worked back in those days, whoever got the most votes was president. Whoever got the 2nd most votes was the vice president. You might be thinking, oh, that's interesting. Yes, it was. George Washington and John Adams were the Federalist Party. Thomas Jefferson was the Democratic Republican Party. So now in that second presidency, you have a Federalist president and a Democratic Republican as the vice president. He was great friends with the Federalists, Thomas Jefferson was, but he also knew it was very important to allow people to have different opinions, different thoughts. And so they were great friends, even though they had very different ideological views about how to run or govern this new republic. That was a great testament. Then Thomas Jefferson wins the second presidency, and he probably would have won many, many more. He was the most popular president. But again, after 2 terms, he now set it in as a precedent that no president should run for more than two terms. And that went on for a very long time until FDR. And then after that, the 22nd Amendment now has enshrined it as a rule that no president will run more than 2 terms. But people who didn't have to be guided by that rule realized by virtue of thought that that was not a good way to run a country, to have people rule until they died. So we can thank these great leaders for giving us these type of thoughts for our great new republic. Religious freedom. Eventually, we wanted to build a perfect republic. It wasn't perfect when it was formed. It's not perfect now, but every year we become better and better. Women given the rights to vote, Blacks given the rights to vote, the freeing of the slaves. Some will say, are Black people still free today? In some sense, they are still bound, right? They're not truly free, but every year we try to make it more and more so. This nation tries to be perfect. And by having these 2 different ideologies, the Federalists wanted a large government. The big spokesman for the Federalists was Alexander Hamilton. He went as far to say that a group of people couldn't govern themselves. They need a strong central government. Thomas Jefferson was on the other side of that spectrum. He wants people to govern themselves. He wants people to be self-reliant. He says a government should only need to perform 3 functions: provide for the common defense, collect taxes, and deliver the mail. Other than that, we can govern ourselves. And basically, Thomas Jefferson said our politics is really rooted in our anthropology. Do you think men are basically good or evil? If you think that they are evil, they're libidinous, they're rapacious, they're bestial, then yeah, maybe they need to be governed by a government, and that's what the Federalists believe. But the Democratic Republicans believe that we're basically good. Thomas Jefferson thought that humans could actually be perfect, that we could perfect ourselves. But he also knew that in order to do that, we needed education, education, and education. We need to read the great works of the philosophers. We need to read the great literary works and about human emotions and human conflict. And by learning, we can now become great leaders and we can govern. So your politics would be rooted in your anthropology. So here we are. It's no wonder that Toastmasters was founded in this extraordinary nation. A nation that gives freedoms. Look at how we actually exercise that First Amendment right. We allow anybody of any religion to come into Toastmasters. We definitely do the freedom to speak. And we also do freedom of press. When I first joined Toastmasters 30 years ago, Al Gore hadn't invented the internet yet. So everything was done physically. We had to create flyers and put them up. We had to go to community bulletin boards. We had to go and put things in people's physical mailboxes at work or in the community. That's how we had to advertise Toastmasters. Now the web is our biggest marketing tool. But it's all written, whether it's physically on paper or it's on a web, the freedom of writing, the freedom of press. We use that all the time in Toastmasters. And obviously, the freedom to peaceably assemble. And in Toastmasters, if we don't like something, we can petition Toastmasters to change. At one point, they wanted to triple the price of our dues from 18 to 54, and there was a big uproar, and Toastmasters International listened, and it only went to $27. And then it went to 36 and then 45. But it happened over time. We exercise those 5 great freedoms in that First Amendment. And it's not a wonder that Toastmasters was formed in this country. I challenge you all to embrace the Age of Enlightenment, to think and be a great leader and do it for the good of the order, not for yourself. And as Todd said, the area governor is the hardest working person in any district. And they lead those clubs, they do a lot of speaking, and they do a lot of leading. And I tell people, if you want to become a great speaker, become an area governor. I have seen that metamorphosis in everybody who's become an area governor, area director in that 1 year, because they are lifted up, they have to speak, and all of a sudden their speaking takes off without them even knowing it, as they are leading. So embrace the Age of Enlightenment. Give a debt of gratitude to the people that jumped on the Mayflower, those revolutionaries, those first leaders of this great nation, the writers of the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, and all the people who have put amendments forth to make this country even greater. They did it to be a great leader, not for fame or fortune. Because they were such great leaders, their fame got put into the history books. When you're a great leader in Toastmaster, your name resonates through the district for many years, and even up beyond. And when you become those international directors or regional advisors, or doing what Roddy's doing and going in to those high echelon leadership of the Toastmasters, and we give them a great debt of gratitude, and we thank them for what they do, because it is a selfless service for the good of the order. So take your life into a leadership position, and you will become a great leader, and you will become a great speaker because of it. And on that note, I'll give some time back and turn control back to Toastmaster past District Director Todd Kovac.
Thank you, Lee. You and I share the same passion with American Revolution history, and I just recently watched a docuseries on George Washington, and it's amazing what these men were able to accomplish on a shoestring. It's pretty cool times. And you're right. You know, what sold me on Toastmasters International was, here's an organization that's worldwide, doesn't recognize borders, and is about communication. That's how we change the world. And that's why I am so passionate about this program. All righty then, we are a little bit ahead of schedule. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take a 10-minute break. It's time to take a break. We're going to come back at 10:15. Tina is going to bring us back online with an activity. So I hope you have a couple of pieces of bacon left to go and grab and enjoy during this break. We'll see you real soon.
We have 1 minute left, guys. All right, if everybody wants to come on back and get settled in and ready for our fun activity. All right, well, welcome back, everyone. I hope you all had a nice break, able to get some more coffee, get some more bacon. Bacon. Okay, if I can get the Zoom host to please share the slides for me. We're going to have a breakout activity. Now, this should be fun. The purpose of this activity is to get you all thinking. You're going to have to think on your feet. You're going to have to think outside of the box and come up with creative ideas. We can all use creative ideas, especially now in Toastmasters, as our Toastmasters world has changed drastically. We all have to start thinking about how we can change the normal, the things we are very familiar with, into something completely different. Next slide, please. We're going to put you in breakout rooms, which you will automatically be sent to. You're going to use the tools as needed. The main thing is you're going to assign a timekeeper to keep track of where you are so you don't run out of time unexpectedly. Watch for broadcast and chat messages and use the Ask for Help button. Next slide, please. When you join your team in the breakout room, you're going to come up with different uses for an item that I'm going to show you in a minute. You're going to need to assign someone to write down all of the item uses that your team comes up with. And that person will need to report back to the group. Also, that person is going to need to count how many different uses for this items your group comes up with. And then when you come back, you will post that into the chat. So we know how many different ways this item can be used. You're going to have 10 minutes to come up with all of your different uses for this item. And this should be a fun thing. The mystery item that you're going to come up with different uses for, besides the normal use, next slide, please, is a paperclip. How many ways can you use a paperclip besides clipping paper? All right, get those juices flowing, start thinking of creative ideas, and Zoom Master, please open those Zoom rooms now. Okay, you can bring the slides down. They're going to have fun with this one. More importantly, we're going to have fun when they come back with all the different uses.
Any of you wants to go in a breakout room, let me know and I can send you over.
Yeah, go ahead and send me.
We can also send ourselves, I do believe.
Oh,
You can do that too.
Just go click on breakout room and find one you like.
You guys are keeping track of the time for the messages, right?
Yep. I'll have a timer set.
You want to pause the recording? Everybody's starting to come back. And some people took full advantage of those extra few seconds. All right, welcome back, everybody. I hope you enjoyed that little activity and came up with some really fun ideas for that paperclip. I'm going to give you just a second for your scribe to count how many items your group came up with. And once you have that number, please post it into the chat. Oh, I'm not sure how you get access to the whiteboard. How do they get access to the whiteboard, Linda?
That is a share screen function. So they'd have to be a co-host.
Oh, so did you take down your items on a whiteboard in your room? And everybody does have share screen.
Yeah, no, I didn't. I was just typing stuff on the shared on the whiteboard. I didn't know I needed to transfer it to something else to be able to use it.
Uh-oh.
Actually, if you look under security, not everybody does have shared screen. So if you want to change the setting, that's where you would do it.
Kevin, can you do that? So if they've took it down in their room on a whiteboard and they share screen, their whiteboard will still be there, Linda?
I honestly don't know. This is a grand experiment.
My sense is that the shared screen whiteboard is specific to each breakout room.
Oh, probably.
Well, that's okay. We had 100.
You had 100. Oh my gosh.
I'm joking, but who can tell?
All right. Okay, I'm going to take a look here and see who had the most. It looks like 45 was the most. So let's start with Sakoshi. She wrote down 45 first. What I'm going to have you all do, so pay attention to what Sakoshi is reporting out, because if you have that on your list, you're going to cross it off. Skoshi, I'm going to have you report back to the group what item uses or uses for the item your group came up with. Now, remember, everybody, if Skoshi says yours, cross it off your list. Go.
All right, I'll try and go a little slow because you probably have to find them on your list. So reset devices, marshmallow cooker, to write with, a bottle opener, a coffee stirrer, a screwdriver, a wedding ring to open doors, Christmas decoration, to put on paper airplanes to help them fly better, a necktie clip, earring, necklace, a SIM card slot to open it up, toothpick, clean thin areas, braces, bind things, a rain chain, chimes, clip bags, a knife on soft items, puzzle, and I put kitchen, I don't know what that one was, so we'll have to cross that one off. To prop things up, kids diversion in classrooms, handcuffs, hair clip, barbecue skewers, a bobby pin, shoelaces, a scratcher, a nose ring, keyboard cleaner, a weapon, pick your nose, ear cleaner, artwork, a medical tool, poke blisters, and I can't read my last one, repair. Somebody said that in our group, maybe they can help me. It was repair something at the end. I think that's, oh, and a tool for managing glass specimen slides, a retrieval tool, holding paper together, a hook, a bookmarker, and to repair clothing. And if I've mixed up and forgot, I'm sorry. I was trying to read all my crazy notes.
Thank you, Scotty. That's great. So some of those items are a little suspect to me, a little questionable. Some of the uses I have actually done. The chip bag, I've done that. That's great. Okay. Who has different items from what Scotia just listed? Baxter, what do you got that's different?
An S carabiner for twine, a fish hook, a stencil to draw a paperclip, a green screen hanger, decoration for making cards, a money clip, a picture hanger, to put together Halloween costumes, as a nail, eyeglass repair, a name tag holder, a prop for a Toastmasters speech, an antique item, and by that we mean a reminder of a first job, something like that, a weapon, counting prop for school kids, and a ballot counter.
Interesting. Weapon is something Scotia had, so I crossed that off your
list.
I
missed that, sorry.
That's okay, it's hard to find those sometimes. And I'm just wondering what kind of weapon? I mean, really, maybe for dolls or like voodoo dolls.
Ken and Barbie.
You're a spy.
Ken and Barbie.
If I poked somebody with that, they wouldn't be too happy.
That's true. It depends on where you poke them in the eye. All right.
Poison soaked paper clips are a deadly weapon used by the right people.
All right, Sandy has some different ones. Sandy, go ahead.
Thank you. We said use it as a key ring. We used it for a device for baking, for scoring for cookies or something like that. Someone mentioned using it to poke holes for leather making, just the right size. A paper towel holder tool, and used for cleaning your nails. A de-pitter for cherries and olives. Add to a glass, say for a cocktail with the fruit hanging off it. Oh, and just those weren't my ideas, just so you know. And I think that is it that we had. And someone mentioned cleaning out a charging port where the link gets caught in there. That was also mentioned. But everything else we had that others had. Thank you.
That's great. You guys are so creative. I love it. Judy, what do you have?
My group wanted me to list first that you can hang marijuana from a pole. Someone found a bag of marijuana by a paperclip. You can clean hair out of a sink drawer. You can design animals. You can clip your mask back. What else do we have that we didn't have? Oh, you can use it as a tool on your laundry bags. When the zipper breaks, open the laundry bag that way. You can make chains for fun. You can hang dried flowers, pin curtains back, hang jewelry, pick things out of jars and vases. I've got open your phone. That might be the Simmet card. And the Microsoft Help icon you can use to clip things. And you can use it as a hanger for any kind of small items. You can use it as a back scratcher. And, oh, you can unclog lotion and shampoo. You can hang curtains. You can write a speech about it.
That's great. Very Toastmaster thing there. Thank you, Judy. Who else? Use your virtual hand so I can see you because we have several pages. Ah, Thomas, what have you got?
Some of the unusual uses, I think somebody might have mentioned a zipper pull or a handle on a zipper. One fellow suggested you can pull it out and make a compass to draw circles with it. And somebody else suggested, I don't know if I heard a twist tie before. You can actually use it to wrap up something, tie it together. And somebody suggested if you get a few hundred of them, you can actually make a chain mail garment out of it, or at least, you know, a few hundred. So those are some of the uses that our group came up with that seem to be unique from the others.
That's great. Thank you. Anybody else got something different? Use your virtual hand so I can see you. That it? Molly.
Hi, Tina.
Hi.
One of the most creative answers I heard from our group was really outside the box, is that you could melt the paper clip down to a puddle of steel. And what we could use with that, I don't know, but you can transform it to many uses. So if you're bored, you can just melt the paper clip down.
That's great. That is great. You can use it in conjunction with the chain mail to make armor. Who else? All right, is that it? Okay. Well, that was great, everybody. I love all the creativity. I want you to take your expanded minds now with all of these great, unique ways that you can use a paperclip. Take them back to your clubs and come up with some creative ways that you can strengthen your clubs, that you can build your membership. Think outside of the box. Just remember the paperclip and all the different uses. How can you use that in your clubs to build your club, to strengthen your club, to engage your members and become distinguished? With that, I will hand this back to our illustrious Toastmaster, Todd.
Nice job, Tina. I don't think I'll ever look at a paperclip the same way again. And that was, oh, looks like Heather has her hand up. Did you need something, Heather? Nope, she's just partying. Look at that party symbol. I gotta figure out how to do that. Next up, I think this gentleman has presented at the Leaders Breakfast or the Officers Breakfast or whatever we called it in the past. I think this is about the third time that I've seen this man at our event, and I'm very honored to introduce him. He has experienced great success, and especially with his home club experience and just being, you know, Lance is probably one of the most personable world champion of public speaking I've ever come across. He's a really cool dude, and you are really going to enjoy this. Lance Miller is an award-winning speaker and trainer. He is the Toastmasters 2005 world champion of public speaking and has delivered over 5,000, I bet it's more than 5,000, Lance, 5,000 speeches in over 60 countries on public speaking, leadership, and overcoming failure and adversity. Lance has been active in Toastmasters for 30 years. Is a double DTM. Do you have a Pathways DTM yet, Lance? Uh-oh, there's a challenge. And has held nearly all of the club officer positions multiple times. In 1999, he was part of the leadership team that built his home club, Renaissance Speakers, to 95 members. Can you imagine? Which has the #4 club in Toastmasters International. Lance's presentation today is titled Toastmasters, an Internship for Success. Please join me in giving Lance a big, warm welcome. Lance, take it away.
Todd, thank you very much. And good morning to everyone in District 2. Yeah, I've been up there a number of times. I probably met most of you on this call in your club sometimes because I've had a lot of the district leadership bring me up, and I've had some great trips up to District 2. And it's fun to have a chance to talk to you today. And it's also fun to talk to someone on my same time zone. Because with virtual speaking, I've been doing like keynotes in Kuwait at 3 o'clock in the morning and things like that. So at least I don't get to fly there right now, but, and I would love to come up and see you. I want to share with you some of the things that really transformed a lot of my career and my career path, what I learned through Toastmasters. But I want to take the time we have and I want you to look, as I look at and share with you some of the things that really shaped my life. As I do that, I want you to think of what things shaped your life. And you may have already done this inventory. I competed in the international speech competition for 13 years. And a lot of people know I won it in 2005. And I've had people send me email posts that said, when you decided to compete in 2005, what was your inspiration? And I said, decided to compete in 2005? I started competing in 1993. I lost at my club for 8 years. It was the 9th year I got out of the club. I went to district 4 times. We had the regions back then. I went to the regions 3 times before I ever made it to the international stage. But through that path, it really wasn't so much a path of speaking development as it was a path of self-discovery, a self-realization of who I was, what my messages were, and what had actually shaped me as an individual. And I want to share a couple of those early things and juxtapose that to my Toastmasters experience. I grew up in a little town in Eastern Indiana, and my family was, I looked about 2,000 people. My family was one of the predominant families in town. I was the 4th generation in that town. We had a milk and ice cream company that my grandfather had started. We bottled milk and made ice cream. We had a small chain of convenience stores, restaurants so I grew up with that business. I was a 3rd generation coming into that business. And my father, when my mom and dad decided to have a family, they wanted to have a productive environment for their kids to grow up in. So my dad built a barn and we raised horses on the side. I had 5 sisters. As I like to say, there were 6 kids in the family. They were all boys except 5 of them. And I think so. My first job in life was actually shoveling manure. And the deal was that we had a little Ford tractor. I was about 10 years old, 11 years old. My dad said, you can drive that tractor all you want as long as it's got a manure spreader behind it full of manure. So I had a big incentive to shovel the manure, but I really hated that. And I look back on those years, and as I developed my speaking, I looked at how did that shape me? What did I learn in that barn? And I would say there were 3 lessons I got for life in shoveling manure. The first one is that the only way the job gets done is 1 scoop at a time. I would sit there and try to wish that manure into the manure spreader. It would not go. As long as I kept shoveling, it went in. And that is a lesson I've taken with me throughout a lot of my life. The second lesson I learned, which I was a sophomore in high school when I decided to do this, I said it's better to handle it on a daily basis than allow it to accumulate. I wanted my Saturdays free. And what would happen is I wouldn't clean the barn for like 4, 5, 6 weeks. And then I would spend an entire Saturday up there and I mean, all day cleaning out all the stalls and stuff. And it was this huge effort. I was a sophomore in high school and I decided when I feed in the morning, I'm just going to rake up all the manure and just take care of it. And I had my Saturdays free after that. And so that's a point I've carried with me through my life. It's better to handle things on a daily basis than allow them to accumulate. That way you can actually do the things you want. You're not spending your time actually taking care of things you should have taken care of. And the third lesson I learned was any job I had after that was a promotion. And there's a lot of jobs I've had, but I could reflect back and say, well, at least I'm not shoveling manure. Hey, so I gave me a point of reference from that standpoint. Another point that I gained a lot of, I didn't realize it until later in life, but working in this family business, about every 2 or 3 weeks, we would have a semi truck full of some sort of supplies, milk cartons, milk cases, egg cartons, whatever, to unload. And my father and grandfather had accumulated all these old buildings around my town, this little town. And so my dad say, I'd be set, 7th grade. He goes, put a crew together, be down there Saturday, unload that truck. So I'd go down and open the doors to the warehouse we had, and it would be packed full right to the front. I go, there's no room to put anything in here. So I'd walk back down to the plant and I'd get a supervisor and I'd come back down. It'd take, 40 minutes, come back down, and he would start pushing things around and do this, do that. And we clean it up. I did this like 5 or 6 times. And then I remember one time I opened it up. I went, there's no room to put anything. And I looked at walking back to the plant and getting somebody, and I went, screw it. Let's just figure it out for ourselves. And that concept right there was the first concept. I said the first point of leadership is that you're willing to start to figure things out for yourself. And that was really the first point. I started to move into a leader at about 12 years old. And then we started reorganizing the warehouses and figuring out how to get the truck into it without going and asking somebody. And that's a lesson that I've taken with me most of my life. Growing up in that family business, I always had a viewpoint being with the family that we were trying to figure out how to make things work better. And there's a lot of people that I've worked with and been associated with, they didn't have that experience. And their idea of going to work was they were in this little silo and they just were supposed to go in and be the cashier or bartender or, shoe salesman. They didn't look at the whole organization and try to figure out how do we make it work. And that when I got into Toastmasters, that became one of the points when we wanted to build our club was how do we make this club work? Before I get into my Toastmasters experience, there are a couple other things that I did. I really wanted to learn how to fly. When I was 19, I had an opportunity my freshman year in college. I joined the University Flying Club and I got my pilot's license when I was 19. My grandfather was a pilot. I had an uncle who was a pilot. I had another uncle who was a test pilot out at Edwards with Chuck Yeager. He and Chuck Yeager were peers. He was quite a famous test pilot. So there's a lot of flying in my family, and I really wanted to do that. It was interesting. I flew for about 6 or 7 years and was very successful, very competent at it. It wasn't the fact that I knew how to fly. What I learned by getting my pilot's license was I could learn complex systems and I could be competent at something. And the way I learned to fly was different than how I learned my education in school. In school, you sat there in a class. I would sit in a class and I would be told what somebody else figured out. And I had to take a test and mark the correct answers on the test. And if I got a B+ or a B-, that was my grade. I didn't get a chance to work on it. They didn't care how competent I was. I just studied the material, took the test. I went on to the next test. I actually disagree with that as an education system. When I was learning to fly, I had a personal instructor, and I was his protege, so to say, and his responsibility was to make me the most competent pilot I could be. So when I made mistakes, he was there to say, okay, let's do that again and make sure you do it right this time. And I was able to continue to work on different components of flying. It's complicated. You got to fly the airplane. You have to understand avionics. You have to understand navigation. You have to understand weather. You have to understand all the federal flight regulations, the altitudes you can fly at, the spaces you can go in, radio work, different navigation systems and electronic navigation systems. You have to understand how to read the maps and all. I mean, there's all this massive stuff you've got to learn. And my instructor was there to take me through it step by step. And when I messed up was to actually get that corrected. So when I went off to fly by myself, I didn't kill myself. And I didn't kill myself. And the point I get from my pilot experience was I had the ability to learn things and become competent at them. And based on my earlier education through high school, I wasn't sure that that was actually the case. I had two sisters that were valedictorians of their class. I, on the other hand, was a world champion wrestler in my high school. I wasn't an A+ student, okay? But I wasn't a horrible student, but I wasn't that. So I left that family business when I was 26, and I have a lot of stories on that I can talk about. And I moved to California to sort of figure my life out. The family business didn't work out. And I had 3 jobs with Fortune 50 companies, and I'd done okay, but they hadn't gone well for what I expected. And that's about the time I started to get into Toastmasters. And I really felt that my career needed to be a lot more successful than what it was. I wasn't getting the opportunities I wanted in life. And I didn't join Toastmasters because of that. I had a friend of mine, and as far as a membership building tip, here's your membership building tip. I had a friend of mine ask me to come to the club 8 times. And every week he would say, he wouldn't come up and say, Lance, you're a horrible speaker. You're not succeeding in life. You need to develop your leadership skills. No, there was none of that. He goes, we had so much fun. I wish you would come to my club. And he'd tell me about this table topics question, or he'd tell me about a speech somebody gave. Lance, we had so much fun. I want you to come to the club. I finally went to the club for 2 reasons. One, I wanted to see what it was Glenn was so excited about. The second reason, I wanted him to quit asking me to come to the club. And it was very apparent he was not going to quit until I came to the club. And I would just say, this is not what the speech is about, but how many times have we asked somebody to join Toastmasters once or twice and we don't want to irritate them, we don't want to upset them? What if Glenn had only asked me 7 times? I wouldn't be here talking to you today. Okay? So I went to the club, and it looked like a really fun thing to do. And that's really what it was. I enjoyed speaking. It looked like a fun group of people. I had no idea what I was stepping into, where it would take me in my life. But through the process of that, we had a failing club. We had a club of about 35 members when I joined it. About 6 months later, we had about 12 coming to the meeting. We have a weekend club, so it meets from 9 to 12 on the weekend. We had a meeting, 5 of us showed up, and the club's failing. And we all had coffee and sat around and talked. We're going to keep the club. We're going to close it. It was about 3 years old at that point. And one of the guys says, well, if we're going to do Toastmasters, let's win with Toastmasters, or let's go do something else with it. And I've sort of paraphrased that. And I said, I don't want to run a hospice Toastmasters club. No, hospice Toastmasters. That's where we keep the members comfortable until the club dies. And somebody else goes, well, you know, they've got this distinguished club program. Now, this is back in the 90s. It was a different program where they rank all the clubs internationally. And we had no idea where we were. We didn't even know what the club program was. And somebody else goes, well, let's be a top 10 club. And we all got excited. And we said, that would be cool. We'd win with, that would mean, let's be a top 10 club in the world. We were all excited about doing that. We didn't know what it would take. We didn't know what was involved, but we went back. We made the decision then to be a top 10 club. And that was in August of 1993. And in the end of 99, in June of 1999, and actually by the time we got things moving on the thing in 94, it took us 5 years to build that club up to the number 4 club in the world in Toastmasters. And I learned so many things running that club. I thought I had pretty good leadership skills. But my leadership skills for the most part were skills that were getting milk drivers to drive their milk trucks, or people to unload trucks, or we had convenience stores, had convenience store managers. I was in a family position in my family's business where I had good management opportunities, and people followed me because I was the son of the boss and they were getting paid. I never really had a situation where I had completely volunteer people in an organization that were trying to quote unquote win the Super Bowl with. And I really learned how to motivate people through inspiration and not force and pressure. I learned about how to find out what their purpose was and show them how they can achieve their purpose by doing what we're doing. I learned something called the Attainable Goal. We had the goal of being a top 10 club, but for some of the members of my club, that wasn't something they could even envision. The goal for them was to do a speech next week. So I focused on the goals they could attain and got them winning and moving in the direction that they wanted to go. And I learned the importance that in any organization, the amount of communication that is necessary to run that organization is grossly underestimated. So in running the club, I would spend hours talking to people, meeting for coffee, calling them on the phone, making sure everybody was on board. And what happened is that experience started to transform me as a manager, me as an executive. My ability to work in the corporate world changed dramatically because of the experiences that I had in Toastmasters. And I started getting all different types of job opportunities. And I was now running departments and building sales organizations inside companies. And I've had probably 4 or 5 people tell me that I was the best boss they ever had, which is one of the highest compliments I've ever had, because most of my life I've had horrible bosses and people that feel like if I don't beat you twice a day, you're not going to think I love you. I want to share some of the things that actually transpired from that experience. In 1998, I had a group come to me. There was several laws being passed in Europe and Eastern Europe that were attempting to outlaw about 180 religions. And there was a foundation formed. It wasn't here in the US, but the churches that were involved, which were a number, formed a group called the International Foundation for Human Rights and Tolerance. And there was a program put together to promote the Universal Declaration of Human Rights through these countries, and basically reversed what a very small select a group of people were trying to push through. And they came to me and they said, we want you to lead a 2,000-mile marathon through 8 countries for 6 weeks this summer in Europe. And I said, I have a pretty extensive adventure background. I said, man, that sounds exciting, but I can't take 2 months off and go run through Europe. And something was said to me that had never been said to me before, because people knew what my leadership background was. They knew my ability to speak. A lot of people knew my adventure background. They said, Lance, this will happen without you, but we don't have anybody with your skill set, with your talents. We need you. And that had never been said to me. And it was a direct reflection of what had happened to me in Toastmasters. And so I had a team of 10 ragtag runners, and I was supposed to get a budget. We were supposed to get funded through a foundation. I'm in England and the run starts and we have no money. I have no vehicles, and they start the run and the runners are off to London, and I've got to grab people in cars and go chase my runners and I had to figure out how to get a bus. That thing didn't fund till the end of the run. And I had to keep that team on the road for 8 weeks, 2,000 miles, and figure out how to rent cars. And we had t-shirts, and we sold t-shirts in every city and got enough money to get to the next city. I want to tell you that the reason I could do that was because I'd been running Toastmasters meetings, and I was used to people not showing up at the Toastmasters meeting, something going wrong in the Toastmasters meeting. And I developed an attitude of making it happen no matter what. The other thing that helped me so much was I knew what it took to keep volunteers together. You had to keep it fun, and you had to validate what they're doing. You had to give them great acknowledgement and for what they're doing so that they feel great about being here. So with my team, I just kept it really fun the whole time. And I took all the pressure, and they were so thankful that I was handling the pressure. And I just made sure we were having fun with whatever we did. And I held that team together for that 6-week run, and had to come back. And finally, 3 weeks after the run, everything was on my credit cards. I got paid and everything got squared away. But I looked at that and I go, how in the world did I do that thing? And then I looked at my Toastmasters experience and I said, how I did that was I had been trained week after week after week in Toastmasters of how to keep it fun, no matter what happens, how to bring the meeting in on time, no matter what happens, who doesn't show up, who falls off, what breaks, we make it work. And that was such an incredible internship for me to go to that I could apply in life. Later in 2003, and I've got a number, in 1999, I was hired by an internet company to do a startup. And again, the internet was wild. It was the frontier back in 1999. And I read a book on internet marketing, and then I had a sales team of about 8 people, and we didn't know what we were doing. But I kept it fun, kept people focused, and we built that company up. Had the bubble not popped, because we launched and then the bubble popped about 8 weeks into our run, we would have sold that business for $100 million. Instead, what happened? About 2 years later, I got let go because we were out of money, and they made it into an inkjet company and wound up selling it for $42 million. I didn't get any piece of that because I was already out of there. But the point was, I kept it together and we were able to actually make everything work in a crazy environment. And I fall back on my Toastmasters experience is what allowed me to do that. The last one I want to share with you, and I probably have a dozen or more of these, but 2003, I was asked by a business, it was a nonprofit business association. They were going to have a conference here in Los Angeles. And they needed someone to basically be the MC of their conference, introduce the speakers, make sure it runs on time. It was a 3-day event. And they had business people from all over the world coming in. There were probably maybe 300 or 400 people attending it. So they asked me to come in and do it. And I said, okay, I'll come over. So I would start every morning off, introduce the speakers. The speakers didn't want to run on time. And sometimes I had to walk out, put my arm around him and say, hey, dude, we got to stop. We're on time. And kept it really light and fun. We'd tell everybody we have a 15-minute break. And then 5 minutes before the break, I'm out in the lobby yelling, 5 minutes, reconvene, 2 minutes, reconvene. And then I would say, folks, I need you to walk back into the auditorium. And I'd walk back in and we'd run right on time. And people going, who is this guy? And that conference ran so smoothly. And afterwards, there were some people attending the conference that were on the board of an international nonprofit foundation. And they said, we need a new president for our foundation. And I wanted to work internationally. It was an interesting combination. So I became the president of what's called the Way to Happiness Foundation, which teaches universal character and ethics programs in about 110 languages. For 4 years, running that on a rebuilding program that we put together. I got that opportunity because of my Toastmasters skills. So I'm going to go into some specifics on Toastmasters, but here's the viewpoint I want you to look at. I'd never gotten Toastmasters to be a great Toastmaster. That was not my game. I got into Toastmasters because I wasn't achieving the goals and dreams I had in life. And I wanted to win at something. And I realized when I got in, I could run this club. I could do this. I could win in Toastmasters. And as I started to win in Toastmasters, I started to win in life. And what I've seen in my 30 years in Toastmasters is, this is true for me. I think it's true for everybody. I'm very sensitive to saying this is what your situation is. But what I experienced in Toastmasters, the problems I was having in Toastmasters, the inabilities, the incompetencies I experienced in Toastmasters, I was experiencing in life. And by having an environment that was safe for me to work out those incompetencies, to gain that skill, to gain the confidence, to gain the certainty that I needed to function, I handled those things in life and I was able to be more effective in life. I want to talk just a little bit about what we get out of the Toastmasters program. And this is what I've gotten out of it. So I put this together specifically for my presentations, because I think a lot of things I see come out of TI, we miss some of the real important aspects on it. No disrespect to TI. I've lived this program at the club level for 30 years. I say the personal development we get out, what we're really learning is we're learning soft skills to help us get along with other human beings in life. And the first area is we're learning communication. We do that through prepared speeches. We do that through table topics. And I will tell you, I have probably learned as much. And the competency I've gained in table topics has probably been as important to me in my success as prepared speaking, because being able to competently handle an unexpected question has saved my skin more times than you can imagine. I don't get flustered. Sure, I take that question. I don't know where it is. I can think with it, but I'm able to maintain my composure and not act like a bubbling idiot because I got asked something I didn't expect. You learn communication through being a Toastmaster, how to work that meeting around. And you can't have everything scripted out as a Toastmaster. It's live. You got to work with it. You learn listening skills by learning how to be a good speaking coach. You have to listen to that speech really closely, by being the general evaluator in the meeting, and by being the functionaries. The functionaries are little tiny baby steps for all these skills. You learn to listen being a functionary. We never heard an awe until we were the awe counter. Now we hear them all the time. We never heard improper uses of the English language, or we never heard great phraseology like we did until we were the grammarian. The next area we learn is, I call it coaching. We call it coaching in my club. We don't call it evaluation, because the whole idea is to coach somebody to be a more competent individual. And this is a very critical skill for all of our success. If you're like me, you'll look at people in your life. Like my flight instructor coached me on how I'm flying, and I always hold him in great high esteem because of what he taught me. And I have had several mentors through my life that I am so thankful that they helped me. They made me into a better person. This is what makes us valuable, is working with people and making them more competent. We learn that by being a speaking coach. We learn that by being the general evaluator. We also learn it by being the functionaries. We're listening, and how can you say your words better, and ahs and timing and all those things help us develop those skills of looking at life a little differently. And again, we learn how to build competence and how to motivate people and train people so that they are more competent. That is a very critical life skill that I do every day in my life. The next area is effective meeting management. We know how to run a meeting. Most people hate to go to meetings. People love to come to my meetings. They hate to go to meetings because they don't start on time, they don't end on time, and everything in the middle is a waste of time. When I have a meeting, I have a room set up, the chairs are straight, the room's clean, there's an agenda on every place, there's a bottle of water. I'm meeting people at the door, greeting them. They know I'm in charge. I run the meeting. I end it on time. I keep everybody on track. And I have people going, I'll come to your meetings anytime. Where did I learn that? I learned that by running Toastmasters meetings every weekend for 30 years. That's how I've learned to be an effective meeting manager. The general evaluator, you get to look at meetings and figure out, how could this meeting be better? What's working, what's not? A critical soft skill to have. Table topics master, you get to run a little tiny section of the meeting, and then the functionaries, a little tiny section of watching how people interact and what they did and reporting on that. The last area of development is your leadership development. The club officer positions are your main leadership roles, but being Toastmaster is a leadership role. You got to lead the meeting. Being the general evaluator is a leadership role. You got to look at how could we lead better. Table topics master is a leadership role. You run that little tiny section of the meeting. Again, functionaries. Now let's look at the overall. And that's the last thing we learn. This is, to me, so critical. We learn how to be an effective team member. We learn that if we don't show up, it makes a difference. We learn that if we go over time 4 minutes on our speech, it screws up the whole meeting. We learn how to work together as a group. And this is something that is grossly needed in the world, because most people growing up today are sitting there looking at this thing all the time, and they'd rather text somebody than get together and work with people, one-on-one. And so we have to teach people how to be team members. Now, the game in Toastmasters, this is another critical leadership thing I learned. Every game has a beginning and an end. And I learned this running my Toastmasters club. I got to tell you, because we wanted to be a top 10 club, we had to figure out what the game was. The game starts July 1st and it ends June 30th. And it's how many points can we put on the board during that time frame. Once I got the game mentality on leadership, every single business I go into, I set up a beginning and an end. We're playing a game, and how many points can we put on the board during that game? And then we get acknowledged and rewarded. Maybe it's a quarter, maybe it's a month, maybe it's 6 months, but we're playing a specific time frame. I learned this in Toastmasters, and the simplicity of Toastmasters is it's members in, and this is the old legacy program, but members educated. We get members in the club, and we get them through the educational program. The last thing I want to walk through is the team structure on leadership, and then we're going to wrap this up. One of the problems I've seen with training in Toastmasters is that we have a district training, we send everybody to a different room, and they get their training on how to be sergeant at arms, vice president of public relations, secretary. Then they come back. We never teach them how to work as a team. So what I worked out for my club back in 1997, when I was president the first time, was how the different officer positions work together. And there was a point, one of the things I learned is you can't manage something you can't measure. Let's just look at your car. You can't manage your car unless you can measure the speed, measure the fuel, measure the temperature, measure the air pressure in the tires, all those things. You can't manage your car. You'll run out of gas, you'll drive too fast, too slow, whatever's going on. You got to be able to measure things to manage them. So I had to figure out a way to measure each one of my officer positions. So the first one is the sergeant at arms, who sets up the room. And I'm going to go through this relatively quickly. I do a full hour talk on this. I'll be glad to come up and do it again. But the metric I put together for the sergeant at arms is a functioning meeting space and an on-time start. And we have a graph in our club, a spreadsheet. Every meeting that starts on time now, and every meeting starts on time now, the sergeant at arms gets noted he started the meeting on time. That means everything's got to be ready to start the meeting. Okay, so the room's set up early and we're all set to go. The vice president of public relations is the person that is responsible for getting guests to come to the meeting. So they drive guests into the meeting. Once the guest comes in and they have a great experience, the vice president of membership turns that guest into a member. So the VP of membership is responsible for the number of members. The VP of membership collects the check, gives it to the treasurer. The treasurer is responsible for accurate financials and dues collection. Then the treasurer, once he's all cleared and he's paid, it goes to the vice president of education. The vice president of education is responsible for the education completions in the club. So that whole thing, now you got a member that this is the dean. He's got to get everybody educated. Then the secretary keeps accurate records of what happens at the meetings. And what happens is if somebody comes in here and they complete their education program, they should win. They'll go bring friends in because they changed their life so much. Then the last thing is we put the president in here. The president basically does two things. The president, to me, the president's responsibility is winning members and an expanding club. And winning members are people whose lives are being enhanced by the club. Expanding club means at the end of your presidency, you should have more members and more education completions than you did the year before. Therefore, your club's expanding. The main thing you do is you help your member, you help your officers do their job. And you do that for two reasons. You want every one of your officers to have a positive experience being a Toastmaster officer. The second reason you do it is if your officer doesn't do their job, you get it. And you're going to have a horrible experience as president because you're going to be setting up the meeting and getting guests to come and signing up new members and doing the treasury work and scheduling everybody because none of your officers are doing their job. So as an executive, you learn, and this is what I learned, how to make sure my officers were doing their job. And then my job was relatively easy because all the work was being done by my officers. The other thing is, as a president, you're going to get stuck and you're going to need to get help. This was another key thing I learned in my internship was I learned when I didn't know how to do something was to raise my hand and ask for help. You get help from two places. You get help inside the club, try to solve the problem. If you can't solve it inside the club, you go outside the club to somebody, but you solve the problem. The last thing I want to talk about is just your district leadership opportunities. Running a club is, let's just say you have your own Starbucks or you have your own Subway sandwich shop or your own Walmart you're running, okay? There. You have a team and you're running that operation. You come up to area director, and I'll just tell you, I think area director is the wrong title. I think it should be area consultant because you consult your clubs. You have no direction over those clubs whatsoever. But you can consult the clubs and try to get them to do better. But what happens now, you have 4 to 6 clubs that you're usually have in an area. Now you are learning how to work with groups and get those groups to succeed. You come up to a division level. Now you're developing your personal skills to work through managers who have groups under them. And so you have maybe 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 area directors under you, and you have to make sure those area directors are getting their job done. Each one of these skills we're learning is taking us higher up the executive chain in an organization to be able to get our intention, our leadership all the way down to the bottom. You don't want to make those mistakes in a corporate environment. You want to go into Toastmasters and do those actions and learn what does it take for you to be successful in that environment so that you can get more opportunities. At least this is my approach. So I can get more opportunities out in the world and I can effectively manage larger organizations. I can receive more personal success based on the skills I'm able to perfect in my Toastmasters experience. And the last thing I'm going to talk about, I was district director for our fall conference one time. Where do you get an opportunity to put on a conference for 250 people, negotiate hotels, food and beverage, audio visual, put all the speakers together? Where do you get that type of experience so you can do it in life? Well, you can raise your hand and you'll get it immediately in Toastmasters. And that gives you a tremendous amount of experience. Because I've done that, there've been a number of corporate and business situations I've been in. They needed someone to run a conference. And I said, I can do that. What have you done? Well, I did a 250 person conference on this. And I've done, I run these conferences. Oh, fantastic. Put Lance in that. I learned those skills in Toastmasters for what, $100 a year or whatever. And then they're applicable in life. So my whole message to you is that I look at this Toastmasters experience as an internship to develop my skills so I can be more effective out there. And it's worked beautifully for me. And with that, I would like to see everybody here jump in and work on your skills so you can all achieve the success that you deserve. Over to you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thanks, Lance. Some great nuggets from that man right there. And if anything, go back and review this recording. Make it happen no matter what. What else is there to do, right? I mean, great nugget. And the other one that I picked up on, Lance, was winning in Toastmasters a lot taught me how to win in life. Totally, totally true. You know, when I was a district director, I really love what you said about the area directors. When I was a district director, I held my area directors accountable to be the club coach, because really they are the club coach. And I gave them all the club coaching manual, and that was the directive. So thanks, Lance. Great nuggets. Hope to see you again soon, my friend.
I'm going to stick my website.
Yep. I was going to say, you have some programs for clubs.
Well,
so
I've got speakers tip cards, championship club cards, speech evaluation cards, leadership cards. These are all free downloads on the website. I also have audio training for building your club, for promoting your club, for the leadership roles, for speech evaluation. I've got probably 15 hours of material that you can download. Now, some of it you pay for, but it costs me to produce it. Okay. I'm not here to sell you. I'm here to help you get more out of Toastmasters. I'm going to put but also I have a weekly email I send out with a little video tip in it. And a lot of people find them valuable. You can, if you don't unsubscribe, and I'm not going to be hurt, but you're welcome to sign up for that as well. So I'll stick that in the chat right now so you can go there and pick up what you want.
Yeah, some great information. I didn't lie to you. He's a very personable guy, and he's all about helping your club be a success. Okay, at this point, here's what we're going to do. We're going to take a 5-minute break. We're going to come back. I'll open it back up at 25 after 11. So grab some more bacon. We'll see you here real soon. 1 minute warning. We'll get started here in just about another minute. All right. Welcome back, everyone. We're just about done for the day. You know, Lance had some great nuggets, and I was also reminded, you know, I always volunteer for the vice president of membership training to lead that training. And this is what I always tell everybody, you know, if he hadn't have been asked that 8th time, he would have never gotten all that experience that he talked about. So my message to vice presidents of membership, you know what this program is worth. So don't think that you're trying to hard sell somebody, because you know for sure that they're going to experience growth and great achievement in the Toastmasters program. So I guess what I'm trying to say is be a little extra pushy, because you know the deal, you know what they'll gain. All right, next up, we have a panel discussion, and our panel moderator today is Deep Paknikar. Deep is very passionate about Toastmasters, and she has been a member of Redmond 2828, sorry about that, her home club since 2018. She started a new club called We Are Pistachio, an online club for relocating spouses, and she did that along with our event organizer today, Megan Buckner. In her non-Toastmaster life, she is a real estate investor's agent and works in the Amazon real estate team. Deep, it's your show. Take it away.
Thank you, Todd. Welcome, everyone. So today you hear from our distinguished past and present leaders. But is that right? There are no past leaders. Once a leader, always a leader. And not just that, Toastmasters helped me become a leader, not just in Toastmasters, but also in my life. So once you're a leader in Toastmasters, you're a leader everywhere else too. So remember, once a leader, always a leader. So let's do a take two. Today, you're going to hear from our accomplished District 2 Forever leaders. We'll start with a brief intro, followed by an inspiring leadership panel discussion. And we'll end up with an engaging question and answer sessions. So add your questions in the chat, starting now. So to my future leaders, here we go. We'll start with the introduction of our panelist. So panelist, if you could please give your name, the district leadership positions that you've held before, and which club you're a member of. And to add an element of fun, talk about one quirky or interesting fact about you. So let's get started. First, I'll call upon the amazing Molly George. Molly.
Thank you, Deep. Good morning, fellow District 2 Toastmasters and those outside the district. I am Molly George. I've been a Toastmaster for now at least 12 years. I am a member of just one club right now, which is Leading Edge, an advanced club. I took on a number of leadership positions, but most recently I served as your District 2 director in 2018, 2019. I have enjoyed leadership. I had great mentors along the way that helped me move up. And one quirky thing about me is you can see there are several Indians on this panel. I'm a little different because I grew up in Canada. So I identify myself as an Indo-Canadian American, and bacon is best in Canada. Back to you, Deep.
Thank you, Molly. All right, so let's go on to the next panelist, Veera Vijay Kumar. Veera, on to you.
My name is Veera. I'm the Division C director this year. Last year, I was the club coach chair. Before that, I was Area 66 director. I'll go with a quirky thing about me. I didn't know my name was this long. 15 years ago, before I landed in US, I came to know that my name has 45 characters. So anyone asks me, what's your name? Hey, my name is Veera. Veera TV or Veera Vijay Kumar. Then I had to know, I had to expand my grandfather's name and father's name, and it became like 45 characters. So that's the quirkiest thing about me. Spell your name, wait a minute, I write it down and read it. I am the member of the CTS Club, Greater Issaquah Club, and the Issaquah Highlands Club. And I'm looking forward for the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Veera. Next, let's go on to Kumar Kannadapalyam. I hope I pronounced that right.
Yes, you did it. You did it as it is. This is my Sweet 16. I just completed Sweet 16 in Toastmasters. So this is my 17th year. Started. I love Toastmasters. Toastmasters changed my life. I started Toastmasters in 2005 when I was working as a employee. I just joined Microsoft as a full-time employee after my 4 years as a consultant. That's when I found the club, which I was part of for 7 years. And that helped me grow my leadership and communication skills. I have played all the roles in the clubs multiple times. And I'm currently part of Issaquah Highlands Toastmasters, as well as the East Side Leaders, which I was the sponsor for. And I have also played division governor role in 2012-13. And always I cherish Toastmasters. And it is my second home, I would say. I have a lot of great friends who just look after, who help us in all ways. That's about me. Quickly thing, my name is equally long, Veera. I'm just one letter short of yours.
Thanks, Kumar. As Kumar said, we love Toastmasters, and I love Toastmasters too, I really do. So let's hear from Kent Bredenstein. Kent, over to you for an introduction.
Thank you. I've been in Toastmasters about 37 years, and it's been a very good ride with Toastmasters. But my wife was in it before I was, and she was a district officer. We were hosting people in her home. So I got to see the leadership up close early on. And I have to blame Toastmasters for getting me into all sorts of leadership roles when I was working, and it was successful. I have been a past area director. I have been a past division director. I'm currently chief judge for the district. And I do enjoy chocolate in all forms. And I make chocolate, and I go through probably more chocolate than most of you can dream of in a year. And I'm a member of 6.5 clubs. I'm in with Kumar with East Side Leaders. I'm in Peak Speakers, which was one of the clubs I founded. I came into East Side Leaders soon after it was founded. And SWD Trash Talkers is also a founder of that. Wing Talkers, I'm a Boeing affiliated club. I'm a founder of that. And also a few other clubs around. I said a half club. One of the successes we've had this year is Trash Talkers had relatively low membership. Chinook had low membership, and we joined. So I'm a part of that club as well. I'm also a member of Story Weavers in the evening on Thursdays. So I keep my weeks going around pretty busy. Back to you, Madam Moderator.
Thank you, Kent. Yeah, so 2 things here we learn from Kent. 1, love chocolate. 2, follow your wife. Remember that. All right, let's go on to our last but not least panelist, Michael Shealy. Michael.
Thank you, Dee. I've been in Toastmasters for almost 28 years, and I'm only currently a member of one club at the moment, Eastside Toastmasters 3491, although I have been a member of several other clubs in the past. I've been an area governor in the mid to late 90s and a division governor from 1999 to 2000. And there was a quirkiness. It seems not quirky to have said it helped me speak in front of 1,000 people at a trade show, but the thing I most remember is the interesting opportunity to do gestures for another speaker calling in on a speakerphone for a club meeting. It was wonderful as an experience and hilarious to everyone watching it. So that's what I would consider a great quirky experience in Toastmasters.
Thank you, Michael. Now that we heard from all our leaders on how they're leaders and their designation and a quirky thing, let's move on and ask the audience, what do you guys think is really holding you back from taking on leadership roles? And as Lance said, is it that you're not feeling inspired enough? Or is there something else? So put that in the chat. At the end of the panel discussion, we'll take those questions and our distinguished leaders will answer it for you. So with that, let's start with the first set of questions for our panelists. And I'm going to go around and ask this to each of our leaders. What inspired you to get into leadership position? So let's start with Michael for this one.
Okay. It's very simple. I was asked, then District Governor Karen Evans asked me to become an area governor. And I wanted to get my Distinguished Toastmaster Award at some point. So that was a necessary component, still is, for the DTM Award. And so I got into it for that. But I really started to enjoy it, being able to help clubs become more than what they were when I first encountered them. And it was interesting that when I visited some of the clubs in my area, I was the first area governor they had seen for quite a while. And I thought that was unusual, but they really appreciated knowing that the district was there to help them. So I got to be the face for the district, and that was a great thing.
Thank you, Michael. And really, audience, do note this part, that he got in for the DTM, but he really enjoyed being there. And that's pretty much universal experience here. Let's go on to Molly next. Molly.
I started off, so my first home club was Redmond 2828, and I started off doing club officer roles. But I think for me, my leadership journey started when I was asked to be an area governor, or now we call it area director. And that, and I think more importantly to any of you out here, is that when you are asked, it's a huge honor. And I was asked by then Catherine Daigle, who was the Area 51 governor. And she said, I see something in you. You can do this role. I didn't think I was confident enough to do it, but she said, I will be there to walk you through steps. She came from a military background, so she set the bar high for me. You know, make sure you show up to your clubs and be present at every moment. You know, she told me how to dress properly, make sure I wore the bling and the Toastmasters bling, and always stay in touch with what was going on in the district. And without her mentorship, her guidance, I don't think I would have probably gone through. And from there, I met many more people, and I went into events like conferences. This Leaders Breakfast, I actually worked with Sandy Malone when she was district governor many years ago. And it just led me to wonderful friendships, connections, and that confidence that Lance Miller had talked about.
Thanks, Molly. And you heard that. Molly said, she was asked. You will be asked. And when you're asked, say yes. Kumar, let's hear from you.
Yes, I mentioned, like I started with my first club, which is the Samamish Speechmakers Toastmasters. And within 3 months, I completed my CC. At that time, it is CTM. And then I was immediately volunteered to be the VPE. VPE, one of the most critical role in any club. And that club, at that time, it was dwindling membership. And I thought that it was an opportunity for me and held on to that. Then it took 6 years for me to get out of the club, to see the world outside the club. There is a huge world outside the club. That's what will help you, help anyone with their real leadership skills. And that thanks to, I just tested the water. I have that fear, and I'm an introvert. And that really helped me to be, not taking up any challenges, anything, I want to be very in a comfortable zone. That held me back for 6 years. And I think Kyle Elliott, she took me as I reached out to her, and she took me as an assistant area governor at that time. And from there, Helen Carothers is another wonderful person who I always, have great respect for. And all those great leaders, Jerry Weltner, oh my God, he's an amazing person. So that's how I got into leadership. Thank you.
Thank you, Kumar. And you heard it. There are a lot of leaders who are going to help you, take you under their wings. But the most important part is how you take your leadership skills that you've learned in Toastmasters and apply it outside of Toastmasters. Kent, let's hear from you.
I was asked by area director that I had and said, okay, you can do it. And she became eventually district governor, Jackie Bailey. And I really enjoyed working with her over the couple of years. But when I became an area director, I had Kumar as my division director, so I had a great role model there, and he was so encouraging. And I followed that up and every time I could and shared his encouragement with everybody that I worked with. So I spread what Kumar shared, and it really helped. I think one of the most challenging part I had that year was becoming a club mentor. I was told I was going to have somebody else help me. I had no clue what I was doing, and the club became a success. And it was fun working with a corporate club. And this was at a time when the various .coms were doing quite well, and this one went on to be acquired by another company. But boy, did they have great parties. And I got invited.
Thank you, Ken. So you heard it from Ken. It's not just the speeches. We have fun here. We have parties. We have it all. Veera, let's hear from you. You're on mute, Veera.
For me, it is both. The first year I took the leadership role, I had to do it because I had to finish a DTM. So I was done with all my speeches. Hey, where's my DTM? Did you know you have to take a district role? Oh, is it? Okay, then I'm trying to find folks who would get me a district role. I would really like to thank Baxter. She gave me the best area 66. So 3 of them were corporate clubs, 2 of them were really doing well. So Veera, all these clubs are already distinguished. I'm giving it to you. Guess what? When I left, it was all president distinguished. And last year, people did ask me. I have had good and bad experience in the corporate world. End of the year, Veera, you did very well. We don't have budget, so you're not getting that promotion this year. No. You did good or bad, doesn't matter. Hey, Veera, whatever you contributed last year, we appreciate that. We have a smaller role or a bigger role here. Would you want to take it? So last year I did take the club coach chair, help 3 people get their coaching credits. This year, to step up, I took a division director. So it's been an amazing journey. People have helped me out. I've worked in a lot of things. That's my thing. Thank you.
Thanks, Veera. Thanks for stepping up to the plate. You see, there is always inspiration all around you and potential roles that you could take. It's a lot of opportunity here. Now let's get on to the very interesting part of the panel. So again, audience, if you have any questions for our panel, put them in the chat. We'll answer them at the end of the panel discussion. Let's get on to a very, very often asked question and have our distinguished leaders answer those. It's going to be a panel discussion between our leaders. What challenges have you seen people or new members face taking up leadership positions? And what would be your advice to them to overcome those challenges and go for those leadership positions? So I would ask Molly if you can get that discussion started.
Sure, Deep. One of the things I observed over the years of being a member and then also serving as a leader is that I felt often that, clubs jump to have guests become members, but the members are still new to Toastmasters. They don't have much foundation or background on how to do a role properly. So there is a lacking of what I would call, I just say mentorship, and I do believe that clubs, not so much advanced clubs, but I would say, the regular clubs, community clubs, corporate clubs have a mentor assigned to a new member. And also to have club officers talk about the various events in the district, Toastmaster events that could help them inspire, better explain roles, the reason why we go to officer trainings. They're just, it starts at the club where you need to have a few enthusiasts there to, when a new member comes in, you have to sort of like hold them by their hands and indoctrinate them into Toastmasters, and have them, and if there's any fears, that's where like an experienced Toastmaster comes in and helps them, kind of talks them out of, like, what's making you nervous, and have them maybe take on an officer role the following year. But you have to keep engaging, you have to mentor, and you have to keep it fun throughout.
So other panelists, feel free to chime in. We want this to be a nice group discussion. So, either you raise your hands up or speak up, any ways you like. So yeah, let's, Michael.
One thing I found is that when people start out, the basic question is, okay, what do I do now? And that's a challenge many of them have. They get overwhelmed with the idea of not knowing exactly what they need to do. And one of the challenges as a leader, bringing on new leaders, is helping them get there without, quote, doing it for them. And that's a balance that I think that you learn really well as a division director, to help the area directors without doing their job for them. And it's a great way to learn as a coach on how to do that. And similarly for area directors, I think it's great for them to take the experience they've had in their own clubs and apply it to other clubs. And maybe they can learn some techniques that, because of other challenges faced by other clubs, that they can apply and improve their own club. And I think it's helping people on that journey, and sometimes being the resource, sometimes being the encourager, the cheerleader for it, as the case may be. And just that's one of the great set of tools that you learn as a leader, is to bring out the best in future leaders. And I think that's one of the things, is getting them started, letting them know that you're available as a resource, and letting them know who can help them better in other areas where you're not as strong. And that's one of the key things that I always found important. So you don't have to know everything, but make sure you know who knows those areas. And if you have that knowledge, you're good to go. You can help anyone.
Wow, Michael, you gave really like a very, very good insight, and not just for the Toastmasters Club. I mean, this is true anywhere. Like, you may not know how to do something, but you should know whom you can go to ask, and how to find out how to do that thing. Fabulous tip. Thank you so much. First, let's go on to Kumar and then to Kent. Kumar.
Yeah, thank you. One of the things, as I mentioned, like having new members, anytime a club, someone joins a member, assign a mentor. In one of the clubs, we don't want to call them as a coach or a mentor. Sometimes people get different perspective of, oh, I don't want to be coached, or I don't want to be mentored. So we call it as a buddy program. So we assign a buddy to them. And so they help the new members with all the things. We follow a structured approach. And also another thing, as a leaders, always look for the future leaders. Who would be your next substitute? Who will be your replacement? And have them as an assistant or who work along with you. So that way you can grow them. Next.
Kent.
Following up on that, and also what Lance was saying about the team, and the team of the officers really helps hold the club culture, and that club culture also helps. If you have a positive club culture that is engaging and wants other people there, you'll bring in successful members that will be successful in the club, and they'll have prime role models. Plus, people will be happy to be mentors and work with them. But again, we learn by doing in Toastmasters, and they get so much support. But if you have a club culture that isn't supportive, you're not going to have that same member experience. So get that team going with a strong club culture. It helps everything.
Thank you, Kent. Yeah, brought up some really good points. Veera, anything to add to that?
One thing I would add is the fear of the unknown. So if you don't know what it is, there are a lot of folks around you. Just set up a 5-minute meeting or a 10-minute meeting with them and ask, hey, I want to become an area director. How much time I would need to spend? What am I going to do in this? There are a lot of folks who would like give you good stories, learning stories. So talk to 1 or 2 people and get the feel of the role. Don't fear that, hey, I don't know what this is, how much time I'm going to spend here. Talk to folks and they would definitely help you out. And this would help you better. When you need to do a district role to get your DTM or a club coaching to do your DTM, don't let that hold you. So take that step, talk to folks, understand it, and you will be able to do that.
Thank you, Veera. We got some really good nuggets. I mean, everybody you heard from to say not just whom you can go to ask questions, there are always leaders available to help you, and how your leadership is going to help outside of the club. So these are very important things that Toastmaster provides that you can come to the club and find out for yourself. Take a leadership position. So now let's take on the audience questions. I know there are a bunch of audience questions there, and we'll have our panelists answer those. So I think we'll have our chat master, who I believe is Megan. Megan is going to read out the questions, and any of you panelists, if you want to take the questions, please do raise your hand. Otherwise, I can redirect to the appropriate panelist. So let's go on, Megan. Let's start with the audience questions.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. We're running a little short on time, but there is one question I think is pretty common. I'd just like to have one of the panelists address it, which is, how do you balance work and life and Toastmasters and make enough time for everything? Molly, do you want to take that one?
Sure, Megan. This was a very challenging part, especially when I got into the trio, is to balance everything. And it really is about making sure that you know all your meetings in advance, and you have your work to go to, wherever, 9 to 5, just as a general type of timeline. And so you are, like for me, I didn't have probably 7 hours of sleep some nights, but because you have to squeeze in some emails before you went to work. But you would just make sure, for myself, I need to know all the meetings, and I would list out all my priorities that I would have to deal for the week or that day if I had to make a call. And for having, I had 2 sons going through all this. I'd make very quick, simple meals, but I made sure I'd squeeze in time that was very important. Whether it's, we all have to go shopping, we have to do our errands, we have other things on the weekend, but time management is very critical, and also making sure that you know what is where your priorities lie.
And that's a good learning too. I mean, not just for Toastmasters, but also life. That time management is going to help you do way more things than you could have before. Megan, next question.
I think unfortunately we're out of time, so we'll need to wrap up, but I'll reiterate what a couple of people have said, and that is your area director is a resource to you. Other district director officers that you know are a resource as well. And so please reach out if you have questions, and we're always happy to answer those. So thank you so much, panelists. Thank you very much, Deep, for moderating this. Molly, Vera, Kumar, Kent, Michael, you guys are great. And thanks for sharing your insights with us today.
Thank you, everyone. I'm going to do a quick close. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Thank you, panelists. Thank you for our chat master as well. And just a quick tip, as Megan said, just to close it up, we are available to you to ask questions. Your club officers, area directors, all are available to you to ask questions. So in case you have any, do mail them, talk to them one-on-one person. With that, thank you, everybody, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Nice.
Back to you, Todd.
Nice job, Deep. That was, for me, that was kind of a trip down memory lane a little bit. Molly George, of course, was my club growth director, and I owe a lot to her as we got down to the wire and we were so close to being distinguished. She kept shoving on me. I kind of wanted to quit. I didn't want to shove on the team that much, but Molly said, no, we can do this. And we did it. And I owe a lot to Molly George for that. All right. I think Heather has some district announcements. We are a little bit short on time, but we'll make it. Take it away, Heather.
Thank you all so much for being here today, and especially huge thank you to Tina Tate, our program quality director, Megan Buckner, the chair of today's event, and of course Todd as the Toastmaster. It takes a village to put on these Toastmasters events, and you all did a wonderful, wonderful job. Those of you who joined us today, I hope you'll take the wonderful, inspiring messages that were shared today and elevate your leadership to the next level in the coming Toastmaster year, whatever that looks like for you. If you're going to become a first-time officer or you're going to step up into any district leadership role, however large or small it may be. Because remember, there's the big roles and there's the little roles, and they're all equally important. And all told, we have close to 100 people helping make this district be successful. And whatever part you play in that, we are so grateful and appreciative to you. And I believe I'm passing it to Tina, but I wasn't actually told. So Tina.
Thank you, Heather. I was just answering a question about how you can get to this video. It will be posted on the District 2 YouTube channel, so you can look for it there. My only announcement is the conference. Yay! We have an incredible lineup of speakers for our conference. We have the reigning world champion of public speaking, Verity Price, will be there. And we also have Ronald Chapman, an accredited speaker. And our first vice president, Morag Matheson, will also be speaking. So you don't want to miss it. This is going to start with some great educational sessions the week of the 16th of May. And the keynotes will be on May 21st, and our contest will be on May 22nd. There's going to be an awards ceremony. There's going to be so much fun, you won't be able to stand it. So please, 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 the registration should be up later today on the D2TM calendar. So sign up, spread the word. It's going to be fabulous. With that, I'm going to hand it over to our club growth director, the wonderful Linda Vorthman.
Oh, Tina, thank you so much. This has been a great morning for leadership. I wanted to highlight our incentives and remind you to look on the d2tm.org webpage. And we want to support your clubs in every way that we possibly can. And I want to highlight two of them. The club marketing video, this is new this year. We want you to make a video and publish it on social media. How simple is that? And do that in either February or March. And we're going to give you $50 D2 to use towards your expenses. And we want you to have a club open house in either February or March. Do you see a pattern here? Another $50 D2. So you could really be in the money. And then we have the standard that you've probably heard about before, the Talk Up Toastmasters, the new member incentive, and the Beat the Clock. So those are our incentives. I just want to remind you to go and take a look there. And I'm going to introduce our Assistant Club Growth Director, Anu Jokanen, to talk about something. Anu.
All right. Thank you so much, Linda. Hello, Toastmasters. How many of you struggle with creating corporate clubs in your area? We at District 2 have something to help you out with this, to not only build, but also sustain those corporate clubs. So it's a great learning opportunity. So we want you to join us next month. There is a Creating Corporate Clubs chat where we will be discussing and sharing ideas of all the wonderful things that Pat Johnson has in her awesome book. It's called A Handbook for Building and Sustaining Vibrant Toastmaster Programs in Corporations. It's a 3-part series, so it's March 2nd, March 16th, and March 30th, and they all happen between 7 and 8 p.m. And that last session is a wonderful chance to ask questions live with the author herself, Pat Johnson. And so please join us. You actually get a free copy of the book. So, and Linda is going to be putting the link to the chat and the link to sign up in the chat. So we hope you join us, and space is limited. See you there. Thanks, Linda. Back to you, Todd.
Oh, I had to unmute me. That's it, folks. That's all we have for today. Remember, go back to your club and do a membership building campaign. You won't regret it. And lastly, what's your plan? What's your plan? What is it that you want to do next? Think about it and get involved in it. Like I said, that's about all we have time for today. We are running a little bit late, so I'm going to hand this over to our amazing chair who did an amazing job. This was so great. It was great to be part of it. Take it away, Megan.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much, Todd, for being our Toastmaster today. I just want to wrap up by saying thank you to everybody who made today possible. So in addition to Todd as our Toastmaster, we had 3 phenomenal speakers. And so Roddy, Lance, and Lee, thank you so much for your time and your thoughts with us today. Our team activity director was Tina Tate. Thank you very much. And our leadership panel was Deep Packnicker, Ken Bridenstine, Molly George, Kumar, Candelipium. I think that I got that wrong, but Kumar, please forgive me. Michael Shealy, Vera Vijaya Kumar. Our Zoom hosts were Kevin Corti, Tommy Price. Our timer was Greg Tompkins, and I was your event chair. And I thank you so much for being here today. You all are wonderful, and I'm looking forward to connecting with all of you soon. Have a great day, everybody.